Transgender people have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth. Some transgender people who desire medical assistance to transition from one sex to another identify as transsexual. Transgender, often shortened as trans, is also an umbrella term. In addition to including people whose gender identity is the opposite of their assigned sex, it may also include people who are non-binary or genderqueer. Other definitions of transgender also include people who belong to a third gender, or else conceptualize transgender people as a third gender. The term transgender may be defined very broadly to include cross-dressers. Being transgender is distinct from sexual orientation. Transgender people may identify as heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, asexual, or otherwise, or may decline to label their sexual orientation. The term transgender is also distinguished from intersex, a term that describes people born with physical sex characteristics that do not fit typical binary notions of male or female bodies. The opposite of transgender is cisgender, which describes persons whose gender identity matches their assigned sex. The degree to which individuals feel genuine, authentic, and comfortable within their external appearance and accept their genuine identity has been called transgender congruence. Many transgender people experience gender dysphoria, and some seek medical treatments such as hormone replacement therapy, sex reassignment surgery, or psychotherapy. Not all transgender people desire these treatments, and some cannot undergo them for financial or medical reasons. Many transgender people face discrimination in the workplace and in accessing public accommodations and health care. In many places, they are not legally protected from discrimination. Before the mid-20th century, various terms were used within and beyond Western medical and psychological sciences to identify persons and identities labeled transsexual, and later transgender from mid-century onward, imported from the German and ultimately modeled after German transsexualism. The English term transsexual has enjoyed international acceptability, though transgender has been increasingly preferred over transsexual. Psychiatrist John F. Olivan of Columbia University coined the term transgender in his 1965 reference work Sexual Hygiene and Pathology, writing that the term, which had previously been used, transsexualism, is misleading. Actually, transgenderism is meant because sexuality is not a major factor in primary transvestism. The term transgender was then popularized with varying definitions by various transgender, transsexual, and transvestite people, including Virginia Prince, who used it in the December 1969 issue of Transvestia, a national magazine for cross-dressers she founded. By the mid-1970s, both transgender and trans people were in use as umbrella terms, while transgenderist and transgenderal were used to refer to people who wanted to live cross-gender without sex reassignment surgery. By 1976, transgenderist was abbreviated as TG in educational materials. By 1984, the concept of a transgender community had developed, in which transgender was used as an umbrella term. In 1985, Richard Elkins established the Transgender Archive at the University of Ulster. By 1992, the International Conference on Transgender Law and Employment Policy defined transgender as an expansive umbrella term including transsexuals, transgenderists, cross-dressers, and anyone transitioning. Leslie Feinberg's pamphlet, Transgender Liberation, a movement whose time has come, circulated in 1992, identified transgender as a term to unify all forms of gender nonconformity. In this way, transgender has become synonymous with queer. In 1994, gender theorist Susan Stryker defined transgender as encompassing all identities or practices that cross over, cut across, move between, or otherwise queer socially constructed sex, gender boundaries, including, but not limited to, transsexuality, heterosexual transvestism, gay drag, butch lesbianism, and such non-European identities as the Native American Bardache or the Indian Hijra. Between the mid-1990s and the early 2000s, The primary terms used under the transgender umbrella were female to male, to terms highlighting gender identity and expression reflects a broader shift in the understanding of transgender people's sense of self and the increasing recognition of those who decline medical reassignment as part of the transgender community. Transgendered is a common term in older literature. Many within the transgender community now deprecate it on the basis that transgender is an adjective, not a verb. Organizations such as GLAAD and The Guardian also state that transgender should never be used as a noun. However, transgender is also used as a noun equivalent to the broader topic of transgenderism, i.e., transgender identity and experience. Health PR.